Waking up in the middle of the night with a low blood sugar is the worst. So let's talk about how to prevent low blood sugars at night.
If you live with diabetes, pretty much any type of diabetes, and if you manage your blood sugars using medications, you've probably experienced a low blood sugar. Low blood sugars can be very scary, they can be super uncomfortable, and I find that when low blood sugars happen at night, that discomfort and anxiety can really shoot through the roof. Let's talk about what you can try to prevent them. And maybe just as importantly, let's talk about how you can identify that you're having a low blood sugar, how to treat it, and why they happen in the first place. Let's talk solutions here, because I personally refuse to be a victim of nightly and daily low blood sugars, and I want the same for you. My name is Christelle, and I've been living with type 1 diabetes since 1997, and since the only way to manage blood sugars for someone with type 1 diabetes is by using insulin, I have now been injecting insulin for over 25 years. I'm fairly well managed, and with that success also comes a fair share of low blood sugars. I do, however, not have low blood sugars every day or every night, and neither should you. According to a journal article from Medscape Journal of Medicine, 43% of low blood sugars and 55% of severe low blood sugars were reported to happen during the nighttime. That's a lot, but don't be part of that statistics, because there are things that we can do to reduce the risk of low blood sugars, even when we're sleeping. A low blood sugar is generally defined as a blood sugar below 70 milligrams per deciliter, which is 3.9 millimole per liter. So you might feel low symptoms at 70, or you might not feel them until you get lower than 70, or you might start to feel them already at 100 or higher, or you might not feel any low symptoms at all. It's actually quite individual. But if you do feel your low blood sugar symptoms, you might easily recognize those when you're awake. You might start to shake, you might feel really hungry, start sweating, feeling disoriented, or just feeling really off, or maybe something completely different. One of my weirder low blood sugar symptoms is that my jaw and my lips will go numb. It's a really weird feeling. I can also get this extreme aversion against eating, which is really not ideal when I should be eating or drinking something to quickly raise my blood sugars up into a healthy range. At night, I will often have nightmares, or I'll have these very, very fast-paced stress dreams. I always know whenever I wake up from a stress dream or a nightmare like that, this is a low blood sugar dream and I need to do something about it. However, although you might notice your low symptoms while you're awake, while you're asleep, those symptoms might be suppressed or they might go unnoticed. There's also evidence that the release of counter-regulatory hormones to some degree is suppressed during sleep. Not an ideal situation. So why does this happen to us? And what can we do to prevent it? Well, there's quite a few culprits for why people with diabetes might have low blood sugars overnight. The one that's probably discussed the most often if you manage your blood sugars with insulin is that your insulin levels are too high. And remember, we're not just talking about long-acting insulin here. If you have too much insulin on board, whether it's long-acting, rapid-acting, mixed insulin, it can lead to low blood sugar. I use long-acting insulin and I use rapid-acting insulin to manage my diabetes. So my trick to determine is it my long-acting or my rapid-acting that makes me go low is to look at the timing. So let's say that I consistently have low blood sugars at 3 a.m. Well, then I go back to my logs and I see, do I generally inject rapid-acting insulin after 10 to 11 p.m.? If I do not, then it's most likely a long-acting insulin issue, as rapid-acting insulin generally just stays in the system for 4 to 5 hours. If you use NPH insulin, remember that the duration is 6 to 8 hours, not 4 to 5 hours as the rapid-acting insulin. But if you do suspect that the insulin levels is the issue, the solution would be to have a conversation with your doctor about how to adjust your insulin doses. This is not just the case for insulin, however. If you manage your blood sugars using any of these oral medications, I'm just going to show them up here. I'm not going to try to pronounce any of these, but if you manage your blood sugars using any of these drugs, you notice that you consistently have low blood sugars overnight. Remember, I say consistently. That doesn't mean just once, but if it happens more, if you see a pattern, reach out to your doctor and have a conversation about how to adjust your meds. Don't just stop taking them. Always have a conversation with your doctor first. Maybe your doctor says stop taking them, but have that conversation and make sure that you find a safe solution. Other things that can make your blood sugars drop overnight is a change to your exercise schedule, especially if you're exercising for longer or more intensely than you usually do. It would be consumption of alcohol. It would be if you've had a low blood sugar within the last 24 hours, or if you're skipping meals. When it comes to exercise, I would not recommend to skip exercise to prevent those overnight lows, but rather that you implement other strategies. And I promise you, I'll tell you what those strategies are in a minute, but first let's talk about what to do if you have a low blood sugar at night. Low blood sugars overnight can easily feel like a near-death experience. And it's generally recommended that you treat it with a carbohydrate that will quickly convert into glucose in your bloodstream. A good option would be glucose tablets or fruit juice, as these will quickly raise your blood sugars. Once you've picked your glucose, it's recommended that you stick to the 15-15 rule. So the 15-15 rule is simply that you eat 15 grams of carbohydrates and then you wait 15 minutes. After the 15 minutes, you measure your blood sugar again. If your blood sugars are not back above 70 milligrams per deciliter, you repeat the process. So another 15 grams of carbohydrates, and you wait another 15 minutes. It can be really hard not to overeat on carbohydrates when you have a low blood sugar, especially at night. So my trick to not overeating at night is simply that I have all my glucose next to my bed. So if I have a low blood sugar at night, I just reach out, grab my juice, I drink that while still in bed. I don't even go in the kitchen. If I'm nervous that juice isn't going to be enough, I'll set an alarm for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I'll recheck my glucose levels, and if needed, I'll eat more glucose tabs or drink more juice. So I guess that's my version of the 15-15 rule. Okay, so we have now covered the symptoms of low blood sugar, why they happen, and how to treat them. So now let's talk about, well, how do we go about preventing them? Actually, let me rephrase that. I don't think it's possible to completely prevent low blood sugars, unless you run your blood sugars very, very high, and that's not ideal either. But what we can do is we can implement some strategies to significantly reduce the risk of low blood sugars. We talked about how exercise can make you drop low overnight, and I promised you a strategy, so here we go. So rather than skipping your workouts or not doing any new workouts, what you can do is that you can have a medication schedule for exercise days. So that could, for example, be talk to your doctor, say, okay, I'll be exercising. What kind of medication schedule should I have on those days? Alternatively, you can eat a snack before bedtime. Another way to significantly reduce the risk of a low blood sugar overnight, and this is not just for exercise, but that is to make sure that your blood sugar levels are at a, for you, safe level before you go to bed. And you do that by measuring your blood sugar before bedtime. I also like to make sure that my blood sugar is not dropping before I go to bed. So the way that you can check that is measuring your blood sugar an hour before bed as well as at bedtime. If you see a significant drop in blood sugars over that last hour, your blood sugar is dropping, you might want to eat a snack. You can also set an alarm for 2 or 3 a.m. Get up, measure your blood sugar to make sure that you're still within a safe range. I don't love that strategy because I do find that sleep is very important, and an interrupted sleep schedule can actually impact blood sugars negatively, but it might be worth it for you, and it might be better than having a low blood sugar. I think the most solid plan for reducing the risk of having a low blood sugar overnight is to either eat a small snack before bed, or even better, have a conversation with your doctor about how you can adjust your medication if you start to see consistent patterns of low blood sugars overnight. Because remember, ultimately, the only reason why you're having those low blood sugars is because your insulin or your other medication is not adjusted correctly for you. And finally, if you have access to it, wearing a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, could be a great help. Check out this video where I talk more about why wearing a CGM has meant that I don't have low blood sugars at night anymore. If you like this video, please hit that like button and leave me a comment. Also, if you'd like to see more from me, click on that subscribe button and remember to turn on notifications. That way you'll be informed whenever I post new content. Thank you so much for watching.